Okay, so several weeks ago, I did a bit of a video check-in, um, and it was really just to talk about how people are feeling and what sort of emotions they're experiencing during this COVID-19 crisis. Um, and one of those emotions that I spoke about was people being able to identify um, that they were actually feeling a sense of grief. And I spoke about how that grief can sort of manifest, and people are grieving losing their jobs, and people are grieving, what's happening around the world, and they're grieving for people they've lost, and they're grieving for the future. And I guess over the past 2 or 3 weeks, when we've sort of been seeing how things are sort of happening in the world, and how things are seem to be getting worse in some places, that it's time to sort of have a bit of a conversation around another thing that people might be experiencing, and something that might be really affecting them as well, and that's trauma. Now, trauma can be a psychological or an emotional response to really experiencing something really distressing. And that could be a car accident, or it could be an assault, or it could be abuse, or any of those things. Um, but I think that a lot of people at the moment may be experiencing trauma from what is happening, and combined with the grief as well, it's something that we need to sort of have a little bit of a think about, and to sort of be able to identify whether that's something that's going on for us. And this whole COVID-19 thing has really been a pretty traumatic experience for a lot of people. And I know that, a good mate of mine and his wife have actually had COVID-19, and fortunately they've recovered. But, that must have been a pretty traumatic experience. And the fear around that, the fear of whether you're going to survive or whether your partner's going to survive, all of those sort of things, they're compounded into the trauma that a lot of people feel. And I think it's pretty important that we understand that, and that we take that on board. And one of the other things that I think is really important to talk about as well at the moment, and this is something that a lot of mental health workers, or health workers, emergency services people experience, and that's vicarious trauma. So if people aren't necessarily traumatized by something that they've personally experienced, a lot of us might start to be suffering from vicarious trauma, because every day on the news you're seeing, reports of how many people have been infected by COVID-19, or how many people have died, traumatized by the fact that you're seeing friends or family going through something that is traumatic. You're constantly hearing traumatic stories, and those traumas, as the word says, vicariously, we take that on board. So from working in mental health for a number of years, I know that I've got a fair amount of vicarious trauma. I've listened to harrowing stories. I've worked with people who've experienced, terrible things. And I know that that's negatively impacted my mental health over the years. And so I'm acutely aware at the moment that for many of us, this idea, this sensation, this reaction to vicarious trauma is really important for us to identify. And the strange thing is that a lot of the symptoms for vicarious trauma are kind of what people are being forced into during lockdown. So a lot of people who experience vicarious trauma will self-isolate. They won't want to spend time with people. They may want to sleep all day. They may use coping strategies like overeating and snacking, or drinking more alcohol or drugs, or all of those sort of things. And what we're seeing in lockdown is people eating more, and drinking more alcohol, and possibly using more drugs, and forcibly being isolated. And that's all part of the trauma. So whether it's the trauma of physically and personally experiencing something, or the vicarious trauma of witnessing and hearing these terrifying and sad stories that we're hearing every single day, we just need to be able to understand that that's what's going on. And I think that's where it's really important as well for us to be kind to each other. It's a really important word, and it's a word that, we really need to focus on it at the moment. I've noticed personally on Facebook that a lot of people will post really scary or traumatic and confronting stuff on Facebook. And we're seeing friends and family constantly. I'm seeing posts of people saying, I have to get off Facebook. I can't be on Facebook anymore. It's a place that is terrifying me, and it's traumatizing me. And I think we need to be really acutely aware that some of the stuff that we're posting is harming our friends and our loved ones. And on Facebook, they're meant to be our friends, so why would we do that? So I think as well, if you're seeing stuff on Facebook that you don't like, that is scaring you, that's traumatizing you, unfollow or rest that friend for 30 days. Unfollow that friend for 30 days, or make sure you unfollow the links that person is posting. Yep. But more so, be really aware of what you are posting and whether you want that to have a negative impact on your friends or your family who are on Facebook. Another thing that we can do that's really important is to reach out, contact our friends, make phone calls, send them texts. I've started, I jokingly put together the coronavirus lockdown gardening and DIY group on Facebook, and that was really just as a bit of a joke, just to get people to connect and to have conversations, and to let each other know that they are there for them if they need them. So I think that's a really, really important thing as well. And the last thing is, make sure that if you need help, if you're really feeling anxious or depressed, or you think that you might, be traumatized by what's going on, reach out to the helplines. In Australia, we've got Beyond Blue and we've got Lifeline. I'm sure in England and America, everywhere, that you have access to these helplines. There's no shame in contacting these helplines, and they will give you help. They'll provide you with services, and they'll provide you with support to get you through what you might be feeling during this time. So I think that's all I really wanted to say, but just be kind to each other. Be aware of what you're posting. Be aware of your emotions, and most importantly, reach out for help when you need it. Cheers. Bye.